How's it going? So today I want to go through and talk about a few important skills you can go through and practice to help you succeed in history class. So first, let's go through and talk about what history really is. History is like the recorded events of history. There is different parts of history. There's prehistory, there's current history, there's past history. Current history is like what's going on in today's society, what's currently happening. Literally what I just said a second ago is history. That's current history. And there's past history, like ancient, medieval, postmodern. There are all sorts of like sub-classifications in my opinion for like what past history is. And there's prehistory. Prehistory is like what happened before anything was recorded, anything was written down, right? Anything before written history. So like things that were passed down and told by like stories, by like what people can remember and can recall. That's prehistory, okay? So history is much more than memorizing dates and events. History involves understanding the past, interpreting evidence, and analyzing different perspectives. Furthermore, developing strong history skills can help students not only excel in history class, but also become better critical thinkers, problem solvers, and communicators, which are going to be great skills you can use in your daily life, especially when you graduate and you go through and you join the workforce, or you go through and start just living your normal life, just day-to-day things. Skills such as reading comprehension, source analysis, critical thinking, and writing are essential to breaking down, analyzing, or learning history, right? Let's talk about reading comprehension. One of the most important skills in history is the ability to read and understand historical text. History students often encounter primary and secondary sources that may include anything from speeches and letters to textbooks and academic articles. Being able to read these texts carefully is crucial for understanding the context, main ideas, and details. Let's talk about how we can improve reading comprehension in history. You can skim and scan before diving deep into a text. Skim through the introduction, headings, and conclusion to get a general sense of the material. Scan, you're going to go through and look for like keywords. If you're looking for a question that says, 1942, what happened in World War II, right? You're looking for the date 1942, right? That's skimming and scanning. Highlighting key points. As you read, underline or highlight important dates, important names, events, and themes, right? This will help you keep track of the material. Take notes. Summarize key ideas in your own words, right? Writing notes helps reinforce what you've read and makes it easier to study later on. Let's talk about analyzing sources. In history, not everything is straightforward. Historians often use primary and secondary sources to build an understanding of the past. Primary sources are original documents from that time period, and furthermore, by studying these things like letters, photographs, and other official records that are primary sources, you're able to go through and get a better sense of what actually happened in that time period. Secondary sources, on the other hand, are written by people analyzing the past, like history books, journal articles. That's a secondary source. If you go through and you learn about something from the past and you're talking about it and you're writing it down, it's a secondary source. It wasn't from that time period. To analyze sources effectively, you need to go through and evaluate the source's origin. That's called sourcing. Consider who created the source and when. Is it a personal account? Is it a government account? Did you find it from a website that was credible? Knowing the origin of a particular source helps in understanding its perspective, right? And seeing how it has a bias. Is it trying to go through and talk great about, like the gold rush, right? Is it going through and saying the gold rush was a great time, or is it got a bias against the gold rush? Is it going through and trying to tell you the gold rush was not a good time? What's the bias behind it? Furthermore, let's talk about ways to also help you effectively analyze sources. You got to go through and understand the context. Think about the time period and the events surrounding the source. This helps clarify why certain things were said or written, right? If you see a bunch of newspapers talking about how tough life is, let's figure out why they're talking this way. Why are they talking about life being tough? Is it the Great Depression? Are they going through and dealing with a lot of stress? Therefore, it might explain why they're talking negatively. Cross-check information. Compare different sources, see if they agree or if there are differences. Different perspectives can give you a more complete picture of history, right? about critical thinking, how that skill can help you. Critical thinking is the ability to evaluate information, make connections, and ask important questions. In history, this skill is especially important because there are often multiple viewpoints on the same event. Let's talk about how you can practice critical thinking in history. Ask questions, don't just accept information at face value, right? Ask questions like, why did this happen? Or what were the consequences? Or who benefited from this event? Go through us about how you can analyze cause and effect. History is full of causes and consequences. Understand the relationship between events helps you see patterns and trends. Furthermore, talk about how you can consider different perspectives and how it might help you. History is shaped by the people who lived through it. Different groups may have different views on the same event. It's important to try to understand these various perspectives to gain a fuller picture. All right, so let's talk about a few more ways that you can help increase your history skills. Let's go through and explain how writing and communicating ideas is a very essential skill. Regardless of whether you're answering an essay question, creating a report, or writing a research paper, a well-written history assignment not only shows that you've understood the material, but also that you can think critically about it. If you go through and you can write down on the paper that you understand something, you can go through and effectively tell me that you've learned this. You can demonstrate that you've learned it, right? So to write effectively in history, you need to go through and first things first, just create a thesis statement, right? A good thesis is a clear argument or answer to the question you're addressing. It helps focus your writing, right? You got to use evidence to support your argument. Always back up your points with evidence, such as facts, quotes, or examples from primary and secondary sources, right? Organize your ideas clearly. Your writing should have a clear introduction, body, and other types of paragraphs with evidence, right? You also want to have a conclusion that sums up your points. You also want to go through and proofread. You don't want to go through and just submit a assignment that you haven't read over and make sure it makes sense, right? You could have forgotten a couple words or a couple letters or not the right proper grammar or punctuation, which doesn't make it right. So always read through your work before submitting it. Check for grammar, clarity, and accuracy. Make sure that you're writing true statements, right? Another thing we talk about is, let's talk about time management and study habits. Good study habits and time management are essential for success in history class. Because history involves understanding complex events and ideas, it can take time to fully grasp everything and avoid last-minute stress. So let's make a study schedule. You should go through and make a period of time where you can break up your study sessions into manageable chunks, focusing on different topics or chapters each time. Don't want to go through and study for 8 hours straight. Break it down where you can take a break to mentally comprehend, process, and keep going. You want to review regularly. You don't want to go through and just wait until the night before to study, right? If you review regularly, your notes and summaries will help you reinforce your knowledge and help you increase your comprehension and learning of the subject. You can use study aids. You can use flashcards, mind maps, and other tools to help reinforce key concepts. Sometimes people let you go through and use open notes on your test. If you have the chance to use open notes, you probably should. It's not going to hurt you to have it if it lets you bring it on the test. If it's against the rules, don't break the rules. Follow the rules. Document-based texts such as worksheets and primary source analysis assignments are pretty common in history class, let's be honest. People use those kind of like worksheets or document-based texts or DBQs for everything. DBQs are document-based questions for all sorts of comprehension analysis and seeing how or what you've learned about a particular topic. These assignments are designed to help students engage with and interact with historical documents in order to understand the past through different perspectives. Analyzing and completing these types of texts can be challenging, but with the right strategy, students can improve their skills and gain a deeper understanding of history. So in order to go through and complete these kind of DBQs and any other type of assignments like worksheets or whatever, let's go through and talk about how you can do it. First things first is you need to understand what the assignment is. Before diving into any document-based task, it's crucial to understand the assignment's requirements. History teachers often provide specific instructions on how to approach the documents, what to answer, what questions to answer, what questions to skip, what kind of analysis should you be doing, should you be going through and looking for a particular topic. Let's talk about a few of these things. Like, you need to, first things first is obviously you need to read the instructions. If you haven't read the instructions, then you're really just not giving yourself a a good advantage to getting 100. If you're going through and just trying to answer the question without reading the instructions, you can miss a valuable piece of information that tells you what to do. So make sure you understand what the assignment is asking. That's why you need to read the instructions. Are you analyzing a primary source, answering questions based on historical events, or are you interpreting an argument? Knowing the purpose will guide your approach and how to complete the assignment. I need to preview the documents. Skim through the documents to get an idea of what they contain. Look for things like the title of the document, the author who wrote it, the date, and any other relevant information that might help you before you begin reading the content. Understanding the content, getting a reason behind why something's made or whatever, it can help you interpret the context more effectively. When you begin analyzing the document, you go through and examine the document closely to understand its content, purpose, and significance. When you start analyzing the document, you want to consider the source. Start by identifying the author of the document and their perspective. Ask yourself questions like, who wrote this document? When was it written? What was the author's purpose in writing it? Is the author an eyewitness? Do they have reasonable or credible basis for what they're saying, right? Furthermore, you want to analyze the context. Historical context is essential for interpreting documents. Consider the time period, location, and circumstances surrounding the document. For example, if the document's from the Civil War, understanding that the political, social, and economic situation of that time will help you grasp its significance, understanding the basis behind why people are writing something, right? You want to go through and identify key themes or arguments. Focus on the central ideas of the document. What is the author trying to communicate? Look for themes, arguments, or important points the document is making. When you do this, you want to also underline or highlight important sentences or phrases to help you remember these key points. Evaluate the tone and language. Pay attention to the tone and language used by the author, right? Is the tone formal or informal? Is the language persuasive, emotional, or neutral? This is great because when you do this, you're able to understand how the author is expressing themselves, which can provide insight into their purpose and point of view. When you're ready to answer the document-based questions, you're going to want to go through and read the questions carefully, the actual questions that you're having to answer carefully. Each question will focus on a specific aspect of the document, such as its main idea, historical context, or the author's purpose. You want to make sure that you understand what the question is asking before you even begin to write your answer. You also want to go through and use evidence from the document. Your answer should be supported by evidence from the document. This should or could include direct quotes, paraphrasing, or references to specific details in the text. Be sure to explain how the evidence relates to your answer. For example, if the question asks about the author's viewpoint, point to a particular part of the document where the author is expressing their opinion and explain its significance, right? Furthermore, you want to go through and be clear and concise. When answering these questions or any questions, you need to write clearly and stay focused on the main points. You need to write clearly so that you can read what you're writing and avoid adding unnecessary information or going off topic. If the question asks for a specific detail, provide it directly. If it asks for an explanation, make sure to elaborate that with evidence. Elaborate what the answer is with evidence to help support your claim. You want to make sure that your claim is accurate, correct, and that you're able to list all the important information. Look for multiple perspectives. In some cases, documents may present different perspectives or conflicting information. If this is the case, acknowledge the different viewpoints and discuss them in your answer. For example, if you're analyzing two documents on the same event but from different perspectives, compare and contrast the viewpoints in your response. While you're also doing this, let's talk about how you can organize your responses to help going through and convey your analysis more effectively. So you need to start with a thesis. Start with a thesis or a main point when you're answering a question. Begin each answer with a clear thesis or main point that addresses the question directly. For example, if the question asks about the author's purpose, your opening sentence should state what the author was trying to accomplish. You need to support your answer with evidence. After stating your main point, supporting with evidence is key. This could include a direct quote or summary of key points. Be sure to explain how the evidence supports your arguments. Explain the significance. In many cases, simply stating facts really isn't enough. You need to explain why these facts are important. You need to discuss how or why the evidence connects to the broader historical context, or why it even matters to understanding of the event or period. Why does it even matter in the first place, right? Then go through and finally bring it back with concluding your answer. You can conclude your answer by making a brief conclusion that reinforces your main points. Summarizing your argument and make sure that your answer fully addresses the question, right? That will go through and help create a very strong argument and a very strong answer. Reviewing and revising. Once you've completed your document-based worksheet, it's important to review your responses. Go over each answer to make sure it's clear, well supported, and fully answers each question. Here are some tips for revision. You need to go through and check for clarity. Read your answers to make sure they are clear and easy to understand. Avoid overly complex situations or sentences where jargon in the answer could confuse the reader. Jargon is like excessive words that are just going on and on and on, right? You need to also verify the evidence. Double check that you use evidence from the document to support your answers and support a claim, right? If any answers are missing key evidence, you need to add it in, right? You need to proofread for errors. If you messed up on spelling, grammar, or punctuation, this is the time where you go through and you can make your work look more polished by fixing it, by going through making it look even better, even more well-made and well-founded. So make sure you take the time to correct them. Furthermore, studying for history class can be challenging yet rewarding class. History is not just about memorizing dates and events, it's about understanding the connections between everything, how everything is interconnected, right? By going through and interpreting sources and analyzing different perspectives, you're able to excel in history, right? Students also can use these type of skills to develop effective study skills that will help you or them retain information, right? Another important history skill is active reading. Instead of passively skimming through a textbook of notes, active reading involves engaging with the text to better understand and retain the material. You need to go through and preview the material, right? Before you start reading, skim the chapter or document to get a sense of its structure and key ideas. Look at the headings, look at the subtitles, the subheadings, and any other highlighted or bolded text. That's probably important if it's got the extra kind of special text, right? While you're reading it, highlight key points. Underline, highlight, take notes while you're doing it, right? Effective note-taking is really, really essential for studying history. Your notes will be a valuable resource when you review for exams or write assignments. To take effective notes, you need to go through and use headings, subtitles, and other bullet points while you're writing down your notes to break down the material into manageable sections so you can read it and review it. You'll also want to go through and organize your notes by themes or time periods. That way, if everything's 1900s, put all 1900s. That way, it's not all mixed in with different time periods from the 1800s, the 2000s, right, the 1700s. It makes it easier to review. You can use abbreviations and symbols, right? So if we're talking about money, like say we're talking about how the Great Depression, people lost money, just put a sad face and then put a money sign beside it, money sign. That way they know they're sad because of money, right? Symbols help you out, right? It also makes it so it's easier to understand, and it helps you speed up your notes. For example, using EG, for example, will help you highlight key points, right? Or etc, etc. It means it just continues on talking about something, right? Review and revise notes. After each class, you should always review what notes you have. That way you reinforce what learning you gained from today. Remember, you can also use study aids like flashcards based off your notes, and you want to review your notes regularly, daily, I'd say at least weekly. Go through that way you can use it when you do a break study session. A breakout in a study session. So a breakout in a study session is where you go through and you, instead of talking to multiple people, you'll go through and you'll step away and you'll break out on your own to study on your own if you're working with classmates. As always, ask questions when you're studying. Ask yourself questions like, what caused this event, or what impact did this decision have? Consider differing angles and possible consequences of historical events. Furthermore, look at the sources, make sure the sources are accurate, and compare different perspectives. Not every source is going to tell you everything that happened. You can't just go to one source and find everything that gives you a complete depiction of the time period. Different perspective, different sources will help you give a good idea of what was going on in the world at a particular time period, right? These skills that we just talked about, that you've learned, will not only help you in history class, but also in any other future academic or professional task, or even just personal task that involves interpreting and responding to complex information. Succeeding in history class requires more than just memorizing facts. It really, really does involve developing a variety of skills like reading comprehension, source analysis, critical thinking, writing, and time management, right? By practicing these skills, students will be able to gain a deeper understanding of the past, and therefore be able to be better equipped to analyze and communicate ideas in the future. Mastering these skills will not only help you in history class, but in many other areas of life, and I can't reinforce it enough. These skills can be applied to anything, so learning these skills will really, really help you out. Therefore, you'll be able to make you a more informed, thoughtful, and capable individual. So, hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, leave a comment. I'm happy to help. Thank you. I hope you have a great day.